What's up, T-Tam fam? Good morning. Eric here for Sunday, November 16th at 7 a.m. Eastern Time for The Truth About Me, episode 19. Wow, 19. Still kind of wild. Um, yeah, this episode's going to be about learning to love again without losing yourself. Um, and this is an interesting one for me because I've had to rebuild so many times. Not so much early because it didn't affect me the way that it did, but pretty much after, um, after my divorce, that was really where I had to kind of, um, put this process into play, and then in my most recent relationship. So let's get after it. Love after heartbreak hits different. You don't just open your heart. You now have to protect it and measure it and test it. The one thing about love is we all tend to kind of just put our blinders on and, and fall into that person. And there's nothing. Here's the thing: is when it's good, it's good. Um, but when it's bad, you then you know you come to realize that um, you know what else am I doing? And I've been guilty of it. Sacrificing everything. Not necessarily friendships, but just putting it all in for the family, and having my blinders on. Not seeing certain things. Accepting certain things. Now, me, I'm a Cancer, so I feel and absorb everything, and by nature, I'm a natural fixer. I see a problem, I try to fix it, and um, and that's good and bad. But also, it's about perception and listening to yourself and learning how to say no. But as I kind of digress there, you have to rediscover connection, friends, family. Um, like, what do you do to keep your identity intact? Were you a gym rat? Did you like to go play pool or throw dots with the boys, every week if you were in a league? Did you play cards? Something else that would allow you to, um, have kind of your own life outside of your relationship, which I am all for, especially my partner. I encourage that. I don't believe that they should live for just you. Um, and myself, those were active choices. I chose to submerge myself in the relationships. Um, I still have a life. I have a life now, but while I was married, it was me, my wife, and eventually our daughter, and then it was just family stuff. Um, my ex-wife didn't do well in public, or people she didn't know. That was more of a comfort thing, and she didn't really want to know about that. But for her, family was comfort, even though they would be at each other all the time. Hey, that's what made her comfortable. So I was just like, hey, happy wife, happy life, right? So I kind of let that go, and with myself, that was my main focus, was the family. It was taking care of the house, making sure everything's paid on time. Um, do we have, making sure that we can do this and making sure that we can do that. Taking, the house duties, mowing the lawn, snow blowing the driveway, taking the trash out, like all just stuff, that you do within inside your home. And that was my life. If something needed to be fixed, I learned and I fixed it. It was minimal, but um, that was the role that I chose as kind of the protector. And not that, I provided, don't get me wrong, but that was more of an equal share, um, up until the end, that is. But you have to do something that establishes you, and that's something that kind of has to be from you know the forefront of your brain, is that you can't forget you, in any relationship. So just kind of keep that in mind, even if you follow the path that I did, which hey, it's good, when everything's good, right? But when it's bad, then it's just like, what do I do? Now you're stuck in a house where, you know, you have no place to go, no one to hang out with because you made that active decision to remove them, and that's something you don't want to do, And even in my latest relationship was, um, I still had my life, and I was open and honest about that up front. Um, but at the same time, certain things that came about weren't accepted, and that's okay. You know, she was entitled to her own opinion and how she felt with it, but um, it's just kind of like, oh well, I guess it don't matter, that sort of approach, and it was just like, well, geez. And at the time that really hurt me because I did feel for it, like that was stuff that I wanted to do. But unfortunately, her work schedule and, I was, trying to spring things at the last moment, for her to potentially scramble to get a sitter or do something that wasn't fair. But in the same token, it was what it was. And, it's something that I learned from 100%. Um, Healing is kind of a big deal, um, primarily for yourself, and that's before reopening yourself into a new situation, because you can't love freely until you've healed honestly, right? And you have to really do some inner work and identify certain things that were brought up within in that relationship that were quote unquote problematic. Um, and it's a good thing because the more you know about yourself and the more you believe in yourself and the more that you love yourself, you are giving yourself the attention that you deserve, right? Because we don't take care of ourselves necessarily all that well. And what I mean by that, excuse me, what I mean by that is, the old saying is that, oh, to get over somebody is to get back, is to get under somebody, right? And that really isn't the case because you're only using that as a distraction, right? And you're not fully healing. And because you do have, especially if you're with somebody for any significant amount of time, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, like that's a lot to unpack. But you know, uh, you don't want to chase validation. Um, what you want to do is make sure that you're aligned, right? A lot of people get caught up in the moment and chase, and I'll admit I used to chase when things weren't going the way that I thought they were, or if I saw something that was problematic again, I tried to fix it. And what I've learned through my healing journey and growth is that I have to learn to sit with it and understand it, and that's how I will be able to resolve it going forward. And also listen. Make sure I have that listening ear and understanding that not everything can be fixed, right? Especially when you're dealing with another person, it's not your job to fix them. It's it's your job to support them and be there and create that safe space for them. And that's one thing that I've learned is having that space is crucial, and it'll be much appreciated down the line. But again, that's why you don't chase. You know what? If they wanna, if they need space, you give them space. You don't go chasing after them. You didn't ask for space. They asked for space. And then eventually you say, hey, you know what? That's fine. I'll give you your space. And when the dust kind of settles, then you and I are going to have a talk about that and find a potential better way to resolve it. But that's just one example. Um, and that's something where now you come to alignment, right? Where if you've healed and you come across a similar situation that occurred in a previous relationship, you now know how to handle it because now you're setting yourself up with boundaries, right? Whether it's boundaries, whether it's principles, right? You can go either or. Um, I think boundaries is a little bit more giving when it comes to females hearing that because they're used to boundaries. So the thing is how you define that. When you have these talks, is like, hey, you know what, this isn't sitting right with me. But I'm going to respect you. I'm going to give you your space, and we're going to talk about this when the dust settles, and then you can make an educated decision on whether or not that's aligned with your viewpoints. And if it's not, you work to find a resolution with that, and then you move forward once it's resolved. The other thing is I had to stop trying to fill the silence and start learning to be whole with it, right? Whole in it, excuse me. So again, that's sitting with the pain, and that's really processing the pain. It's not using anything as a distraction, whether it be doom scrolling on your phone, going out banging every girl that you happen to see, or guy, whatever your pleasure is, and um, moving on. Um, but if you don't heal yourself, then whatever happened in the previous relationship will eventually happen in your new relationship. So I urge you to get that sort of help, whether it's professional. That's kind of number one that I see, because they're going to give you a different perspective on it, and they're going to give you things that um, tools that you can use. A lot of it's reading self-help books. If that's kind of your cup of tea, then I recommend it. It's good. It's therapeutic as well. Journaling, for me, writing it down allows me to get it out. So those are just a few things during that healing process. Now, when you look at the fear of losing yourself, right, you have to reflect on past patterns where giving too much meant losing yourself. And again, this is where kind of boundaries come into play. What are you willing to give up, right? How are you willing to deal with that? And, is this a constant? Is this, running on a loop? Because as humans, we do create patterns, subconsciously or consciously, whatever it is. But you also have to, understand that, if the past patterns and previous relationships have been an issue, you now have to kind of stop and visit that and correct it. So in your new relationship, you do not, still have those same patterns. That's going to ultimately cause, excuse me, for the demise of that relationship. Another thing is love used to mean overextending. Now it means allowing, right? So the thing is we go into, I mentioned boundaries. Now you have a self-sacrifice line and a self-respect line. And in any relationship, there's give and take, right? And that to me is a part of a healthy relationship, because you're talking about two. At the end of the day, it's two different people who grew up in potentially two different types of settings. Has whatever you learned as a child could vastly differ from what they learned as a child, and that childhood is something that we bring into our adulthood, especially if we haven't dealt with it. So you need to make sure that you have a clear boundary, because self-sacrifice is a choice, right? It's something that individual chooses. Self-respect That's another thing is, you want to make sure that you're getting the respect that you deserve, and your partner understands that, with the boundaries that have been set in place, that they're respected. And if they're not, move on, because it's not going to get any better. Because once they cross that line, they're going to continue to cross that line. And then what's the point of having a boundary, right? If they're not going to respect it. So, keep that in mind. It's okay to say no, right? And that's taken me a very, very long time to, um, do. And I'm not perfect with it either, and I still struggle with it because of how much I care for the person that I'm in the relationship with. But I also have to do a better job of, seeing that, identifying it earlier, and, giving the truthful answer. Um, so we go into, what redefining love looks like now. Um, so I'm going to kind of describe, what love means post growth. It's calm, consistent, it's communicative. There's no more chaos disguised as passion. Um, and that's really kind of thing, in my early years, love to me was a feeling, right? It meant, excuse me, it meant a lot to me. And, but I let it attack my nervous system, and where I was like the goddamn Tasmanian devil, right? And I've had to learn to, you know, I've had to learn to change my ways, change my viewpoints, change my outlook, change my coping mechanisms, to be able to become calm and become consistent and to be communicative. And in in my adulthood, I want to say 30s and up, you know, it's been like that. I try not to get angry. It's gonna happen, but it's something that I'm constantly, you know, now I'm sitting with the question, I'm reviewing the question, I'm taking a deep breath before I answer that question. So when you kind of take those approaches by being calm, being consistent, being communicative, if you have a partner that's willing to see that, then you're on the right path. Um, but at the end of the day, it's how you approach it yourself, and that's through discipline, that's through consistency, that's through different types of work that you're going to be doing for yourself during this time. It's part of that inner work. You know, um, here's a little saying: is that the love I want now doesn't test my peace; it protects it. So, when you get your heart broken so many times, um, and everybody's different because everybody, processes things, differently according to experiences, according to astrological sign. Again, I absorb everything, and it's hard for me to not love fully because I feel that with any relationship that I'm in, I feel that's an injustice to the person that I'm with because I fully believe in giving 100% of myself. And for me, hey, I'm used to picking up the pieces, but for others is you want to protect yourself, and some people have a protection system that's second to none, and when the site goes up, then forget about it. Good luck trying to get into it. But again, it's something that um, you want to. Um, protect yourself and just kind of be mindful of when you're about to get into a relationship, after you've healed, is kind of give yourself a little pep talk. Um, and now we kind of go into what is the right type of partnership, right? Um, it's not about physical beauty, right? Of course, some, you naturally see somebody that you're attracted to, and it's something where, hey, you know what, they're a good looking person, but you can be a good looking person, but you can have an ugly soul. And that's something that I've learned, in my years. Um, and the biggest thing is just being able to stand on 2 feet, in a partnership. Is you want to be with somebody that adds value and isn't dependent, right? And a lot of women will kind of get mad at me on this, but in the same token, you have to learn how to take care of yourself, take care of your own, before you can get into a relationship with anybody. And guys, same thing. There's certain things that come about, and but you got to make sure that you're not being dependent on the other person. And dependent can mean so many things, but primarily is, in dealing with, what we're talking about here, is um, that you don't want to have them be your own source of happiness. And that's really what it comes down to. Um, is you want to have happiness before you get into that relationship. Um, you don't want to have happiness once you're in a relationship, right? Because it's a different type of happy. Um, and you will notice the difference on that, as you come across it. Is if you're happy with yourself beforehand, then getting somebody, a partner who adds value, is just a bonus, right? As opposed to coming in ho hum, and I meet somebody, and then guess what? Now I'm happy, right? But you're only happy when you're with that person, and sometimes it's not a bad thing to be with them. Some people love the clinginess, and then there's others that are like, hey, give me my space, respect my space, and you kind of have to understand that and know that about your partner before you can, kind of move forward, within that relationship. But um, you don't want somebody that's gonna complete you. You want to have somebody that's gonna walk beside you, and that is the ultimate partnership, the ultimate teammate that you want. Is you don't want to be fighting for the same role, because it's not gonna happen. And it won't work out in that relationship if you're fighting for the same role. You want to walk side by side, right? Men, always on the outer, always on the street side, while women are on the inside. So, kind of keep that in mind. Compatibility through shared purpose, not shared pain, is kind of a big thing. Um, make sure that you know you're curious with your partner. Is you're asking questions, you're finding out, information, like what are some things that you like? Are there some things that they like as well? Because now you have common ground. Where, if you happen to be a big meat eater and you date a vegan, guess what? You may, the opposites attract, may not work in your favor. But, and I use that term loosely, like honestly, like it's one of the more comical ones, because I'm just a carnivore, um, myself. But and I've known some very staunch vegans that don't even want meat in the house. So, but again, you have to find that compatibility that's going to work. It's not about physical compatibility. Most people can learn to be physical with each other, but it's all about that mental compatibility. Um, do you guys see things on the same level, right? Um, but one thing I do want to bring up with that is, if you don't, it's okay to agree to disagree, right? Because at the end of the day, you are two different people who have two different outlooks, two different viewpoints, opinions, so on and so forth. So, it's okay to not have everything align, but you want to have good a good amount of it aligned, simply because it will make things, easier and more fun for you um, down the road. Um, so, as I come to the conclusion of this episode, is learning to love again isn't about finding someone new. It's about meeting yourself again in a softer place. So, kind of keep that in mind as you go through this journey and learn to love yourself. As you're learning to love yourself, it's tough because, some people are used to giving their all to somebody else, and they put themselves on the back burner. And you have to put yourself on the front burner. Otherwise, you will burn out. Right? So, always kind of end episodes with a question. Let me ask you this. When was the last time love felt peaceful, not performative? Think about it. Let me know. Put your comments, put your questions, put your answers, whatever, in the comment box. Um, because I'd love to hear, love to talk about it. You know, um, and that's really going to do it for today's episode. A few hours. I got to get ready to um, got to get ready to go open the gym, coaching at 9 a.m. and then I have church afterwards. So it'll be fun. Gonna be bringing my daughter, so that's always it's a good thing. She really does embrace the church that we go to, and she enjoys it. So that makes me happy because it's something that we kind of get to do together, and it's a great bonding experience for us, and I look forward to many more. But until then, if you haven't gone to the gym, hit the gym. Make sure you're fueling yourself right, taking care of yourself. We'll catch you next time. Have a good day.